Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen Shane and today I am bringing you another Etsy tips video all about how to price your handmade items when selling on Etsy. I've done quite a few other Etsy tips videos in the past and videos about my experience selling on Etsy and my shop, so I will link that playlist here for you if you are interested in any of those videos. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I am trying to reach 10,000 subscribers this year, so if you want to be a part of that journey, be sure to stick around, and I post new videos every single Friday. I've got some notes here on my phone of all my thoughts for how to price your handmade items. I hope this is helpful for you. I almost always post a blog post to go along with my videos, so you kind of have a written format of the videos as well, but feel free to grab a drink, take some notes, and get ready to talk about how to price your Etsy items. So the first big thing to take into account for pricing your items is the cost of your actual goods and the materials that are required to make your finished product. This includes things from the actual supplies to make the product, along with everything else you need to create that product and ship it to your customer. When pricing items, something I learned very early on is that you need to include the cost of the shipping supplies into the cost of making your item. So let's say you're selling candles and you have 3 different size candles, let's just say small, medium, and large. If you have a different box for the small candles versus the large candles, that's going to be an additional cost of each of those items. So the more shipping supplies you have, the more expensive that is, and the more you need to incorporate that cost into the cost of each individual item. If you don't take the cost of the shipping supplies into account for your item, your price and your cost of the item are going to be under what you're actually spending and what it actually costs you to produce and ship that item. You should also include, or at least think about, the cost of any of the tools for making that item. And this is part of where it can get tricky, because obviously if you're starting an Etsy shop and you spent $200 on a sticker making machine, you can't charge $200 for your first sticker to offset that cost, but you kind of have to break it down for the cost of each individual item and all the other products you paid for and put your money into for making that product. This is also where a lot of people say, oh, you're selling stickers on Etsy or you're selling greeting cards on Etsy. I could do that. Why don't I just do that? Why are you charging X amount of money when I could just print that at home? But what people are not considering is all the time, energy, and skill it took to make that product, plus all of the supplies you specifically bought to print and sell that item. So for example, you could say, oh, I could just print that out, but in reality, the shop owner could have bought a printer, printer ink, printer paper, and specific other graphics and other supplies for actually making that finished product. So when calculating the cost of the actual good, you should take into account the physical goods that it took to make the product, like the jewelry supplies or the sticker paper or the sticker maker, the candle wax, whatever it is. Take into account that cost, as well as the cost of your shipping supplies and the cost of the tools or anything else you had to pay for specifically to make that item. You first need to add up all the costs of making that item, and then you can kind of figure out a individual cost per item or per set of items that you will actually charge the customer. The second thing to take into account in pricing your items and figuring out the cost of those items is the cost of your time. And this is probably the most difficult thing to wrap your mind around and to get right as a shop owner and as an entrepreneur, because in my experience, I'm hardly ever making a minimum wage for every hour of work that I'm putting in. And if that's not something you're ready to accept or ready to deal with and live with, then this might not be the right business for you. But I know a lot of people start Etsy or handmade items as a hobby that can eventually grow into a business. Mine has grown into a business as well, and I would say I'm making decent money selling on Etsy and making YouTube videos, but I'm still not making, let's say, $10 an hour for all of the work I'm putting into all of my work combined. So that's just something you have to keep in mind, and kind of just a cost of doing business, unfortunately, unless you're making 6 figures or something selling on Etsy, which is not the reality for a lot of people, although it might be for some people. It's just kind of a burden you have to bear to make your dream business and a handmade business. And it's also something you shouldn't ignore. So just because you can't be making a minimum wage if you're spending hours and hours creating your shop and creating new products, that doesn't mean your time is worth nothing, and you should still account for the cost of your labor and the cost of your time. You just need to be realistic about it, that it might not be equivalent to what you would be making per hour or per item as if you were working a regular full-time hourly or salaried position. For example, if I'm making a new sticker or a new greeting card design, let's say, it might take me 2 hours to research the design, create the design, finalize it, and then create the finished product, be it a printed cut sticker or a printed greeting card. And I would say 2 hours would honestly be on the low side for creating an entirely new product from scratch. But let's say that's 2 hours of my time, and if I want to be making $10 an hour, that's $20 worth of labor, but I can't really go out and charge $20 for a single sticker or a single greeting card. If that kind of makes sense, for it's not always going to be like an hourly wage, but you can break down the cost of how long it takes to make each additional item or how much effort and labor you actually put into that item. So let's say the cost of the sticker paper or the greeting card in the envelope costs me $1, let's say. I'm not just going to put the cost to the customer or the price at $1 because I put my design on it, I put work, time, and effort into it, and that is what is really making your product something that people are paying for. They're paying for the work and the design you put into it, not just the raw supplies that you use to make it. Another example of this, just from me personally, would be with something like a painting. The cost of the actual canvas and the painting might be rather low, but it probably took a lot of time and effort to make that painting. Not only are you painting it and coming up with a design, but you also have to let it dry, come back, do multiple coats. The real value of that product comes from the time and effort it took you to make it, not just from the cost of raw materials by itself. This is also kind of where the cost of handmade goods and Etsy items really separates from the cost of manufactured goods or things that are made in mass numbers in factories, because those can be made hundreds or thousands per hour versus it might take you a whole hour or two to make a single good on Etsy. And again, that value, that time, and that skill is what people are paying for. So don't undersell yourself. Remember that it's taking your time and your life to make these things and to create these products for your customers. But just also remember that it's going to be hard at first and you might not be making as much as you would like at first, but the more products you sell, of course, the more you're going to work towards that fair wage of what you would be making per hour or something. And I guess something else that I tried to say earlier and kind of got sidetracked is to remember what your time is worth and don't kind of fall into that trap of, I could buy this on Amazon for $3 and you're charging me $8, or why am I buying this from you and paying you for this if I could make it myself or make it at home? The people that act like that and try to kind of shame you for charging what you're charging are not your people and not your customers, and there are plenty of people out there who are willing to pay you for the skill, time, and effort you're putting into your products. Just to remember to not undersell yourself and to remember that your time is very valuable and probably the most valuable thing that you have to work with for your shop. The third thing to consider in pricing your items and figuring out the cost that it's taking to make them is to evaluate the cost of similar items. I realize, again, this can be very difficult when every item and every shop is unique and very different. Everyone's going to have different processes and costs of goods and labor. But this is kind of one of my best tips, I would say, for figuring out whether the price that you figured out kind of on your own is a good price for the Etsy market and kind of compares to similar items. Because if you are making a greeting card, let's say, and you come up with a price of $5 per card, you should go on Etsy and look at similar cards or find goods that are as similar as possible to your item and see what people are charging. There's going to be a big range, but I would say to try and stick somewhere in the middle of that range or figure out the differences in prices for some of them. Like, let's say some of them are way cheaper, but is there a reason they're way cheaper? Are they less valuable? Is there some other element that makes them on the cheaper side of the product? And then for the more expensive items, consider why those items are priced the way that they are. Do they have more embellishment on the cards? Are they all individually designed? Are they one of a kind? That sort of thing. And then kind of figure out where your item fits in that market, and to see if other Etsy customers are willing to pay the price for that item. And I would definitely just recommend to use this as a guide, but not as a hard rule, especially if you are a brand new shop, because your prices can change, and I would say they definitely will change over time unless you have some magical formula for pricing your items and finding out the perfect price that customers are willing to pay. Which if you do, let me know, because I'd love to hear it. But just keep in mind that the age and experience of each shop is also going to determine the price of the items. You might increase your costs over time, or you might decrease them if you're selling more and therefore making more, so you can charge less. Or as you gain more experience and are putting more skill and effort and individual craftsmanship into each item, you want to charge more to account for that. So just keep that in mind when kind of researching and evaluating the cost of similar items, but also realize people might be willing to pay more to a more experienced shop or a more experienced shop owner than to a brand new shop with 0 sales or less than 10 sales. But again, remember that cost or price also kind of signifies quality or quality of the good. It's kind of like a mental thing. There's a lot of psychology behind a price and all of that. But just realize that if everyone else is charging $10 plus for something and you're charging $2, what is that going to signal to the customer? That there's some reason you're charging so little for a product that everyone else is charging more for. That might kind of signal that, oh, this item is cheap or not valuable in some way if it's so much cheaper than every other item. And the same thing for something that's significantly more expensive. They'd be like, why is this item so expensive? Or they might be turned off if one single item is significantly more expensive than other similar items without some very specific and unique explanation and reason as to why that one product is more expensive. I mentioned this a little bit in the previous tip, but something really important to keep in mind, again, especially if you are a new or brand new seller, is to think about the age and reputation of your shop and how that might influence or change what customers are willing to pay for your items. When I first started selling, or when I introduce a new type of products to my shop, I might price them slightly lower than where I would like to be, and then increase it very slowly, like 5, 10, 15 cents increase, I mean very small increments over time as that item continues to sell, and just as I continue to make more sales and get more positive reviews on my shop and kind of build my reputation that way. And a lot of my items are priced like under $10, so I'm not talking a huge price difference. I might price it 50 cents or $1 lower than I would like to kind of put myself on the low end of similar products to balance the fact that I was a new shop or that my item was brand new, and then slowly increase that over time as I have more experience and more positive reviews on my shop. As you continue to sell more or sell more of that product, you might also get a better idea for the true cost of each item as you continue to make more, because again, the cost of making a bulk of items is probably going to be less than making a few at a time. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can have a now price and a future price that you would like to work towards as you gain more experience and sell more of that product. I wrote another note that I'm just going to read out because I really like the way that I wrote it. And I know I will not say it as well the second time from when I originally wrote the notes for this, so I'm just going to read it. Creative handmade goods can be difficult to price, and Etsy is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If that's what you're after, the Etsy business and the handmade selling business is not for you. Just going to be honest. But it is extremely rewarding to list and sell your handmade works of art, and customers will be so impressed with the quality of your handmade creative goods. You can always increase prices over time as you become more confident in your goods. Like I said, with the cost of your time, that's something you will kind of be more confident in and feel better about saying, I'm confident in the price of this because I know how much work and time it took me to make it. I have the skill to make this. This is a unique item that not just anybody could make. I was very wary of charging a certain price for my items. I thought even something like $10, $12 was so much. I was like, why would anyone pay me for this? But as I continued to sell and gain reviews and just gain experience, I also gained confidence in charging what I'm charging for my goods. My final tip and kind of note is just that price is not the sole reason your items are or are not selling. So if the price is something you're struggling with, or if you're not making any sales, or if your sales have kind of slowed down, or they're very far and few between, just remember that your price alone is not the only reason things are or are not selling. A question I get all of the time is from people who are brand new to Etsy and have made no sales or a very small number of sales, and they're like, why are my items not selling? Why am I getting no sales? This is the hardest question to answer ever if I don't know you and your shop and your experience and kind of all the details for your product, because there's truly so much that goes into it and into why an item may or may not sell or may not be found by customers. So if this is something you're struggling with, my best recommendation is to consider all of the factors. I've made other videos about this, how to create good listings on Etsy and how to make listings that are eye-catching and that people want to see, as well as how to be found through Etsy search. So there's a lot of other stuff that goes into this, but evaluate the photos. Are they good photos? Are they eye-catching? Are they bright and clear? Do they show your product in a good light? You can also evaluate things like your titles, tags, and descriptions of your item, whether those are accurate and also hitting the key search terms that people are typing into Etsy to find products like yours. As well as things like, is there even a market for your goods? Are people searching for them? And if people are searching for them, why are they not finding your product? Or if lots of people are looking at your product and you're getting a lot of views to your shop and to your listings, but they're not selling, evaluate why that might be. Is it because the price is too high? Is it because the price is too low? Is it because your shipping time is too long? Or you don't have it written how fast you'll ship the item? Is it because you don't have enough pictures? People love to see every possible picture of the item. Or is it because you don't have a clear description of the good? There's a lot of different things that will go into why your item isn't selling. So I would definitely recommend checking out some of my other videos or kind of just doing more specific research into that, because the price alone is not the only factor. There's like a million factors for why your item is or is not selling, and you should kind of try your best to evaluate the root of that and then work from there. I really wanted to focus in this video on calculating the true cost of your items, because this was something I overlooked a lot and something I feel like a lot of shop owners overlook a lot of the costs, like the cost of your time, tools, and supplies in learning how to price your items. So that was something I really wanted to emphasize. A general rule that I like to use as well is to think about how many of this item can I make in 1 hour, and then kind of divide the cost of my time that way. So if I'm making greeting cards, let's say, how many greeting cards can I make in 1 hour? And let's say I can make 6. I can make 6 greeting cards per hour. So then I'm going to divide the cost of my time by 6, and that's the cost of my time per card. Plus the cost of things, like I mentioned, supplies, any materials, tools, and shipping. And then I'm going to take the cost of the actual physical goods, add the cost of my time, divided by the hour or by the number of products, then evaluate if that cost is in a good range compared to other similar products on Etsy, and then settle on a final price. I hope this was helpful for you. I've tried to do my best to kind of work out a helpful guide for determining the cost of your items and the cost of producing handmade goods before you can figure out the finalized price to charge your customers, and to be confident in charging your customers, because the cost of your time is extremely valuable. Again, I will have a blog post kind of with an outline of this video that you can refer back to if you want to kind of sit on it, think on it, take some notes, and come back to it. If you liked this video and want to see more from me and more Etsy videos, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below to help me reach my goal of 10,000 subscribers this year. I'm so glad you are here and decided to spend a few minutes of your day with me. I post new videos every single Friday, so I will see you again next week. Till then, be nice to people, be nice to yourself, and do something kind today. See ya.